welcome to this session. Today I am going to take up episode 2 of the lesson Landscape of the Soul from class 11 English textbook Hornbill. In the first episode, we talked about Eastern painting as well as Western painting. The writer introduced us to the painting of Wu Daozi. He had made a painting which had everything in it. It was a landscape. Therefore, the chapter is titled Landscape of the Soul. There were mountains, rivers, birds, animals, trees, humans, but at the end of the mountain there was a cave also. And the painter wanted to take the emperor along with him through the cave so that he could understand the spirit or the soul of the painting. But it so happened that when he entered the cave closed and the painting and the painter, they both vanished from the scene. This is the anecdote. This is the story. So, at that time, the educationists, the teachers used to use such anecdotes to help their pupils understand the deeper meaning of life. You have to get into something with your heart and soul. But at the same time, the author introduces us to realistic, illusionistic form of painting, where a blacksmith paints a fly on the panel of a great painter, and that painter thought this was a real fly and he was swatting it. It didn't fly. So, that was realistic. Now, we start with the session now. So, according to the author, this is even more true in the case of the horizontal scrolls. Now, we are talking about the Eastern painting, not the Western one, in which the action is slowly opening one section of the painting, then rolling it up to move on to the other. You can look at the painting from any angle. This adds a dimension of time which is unknown in any other form of painting. This also requires the active participation of the viewer, who gets to decide the pace at which he will travel through the painting. See, you may spend hours trying to understand the painting. You can look at it from different angles. You may interpret it in your own way. This kind of participation is both physical and mental. A Western figurative painting presents an actual view, which is realistic. The European painter wants you to borrow his eyes. That is, you should be able to look at a particular landscape exactly as he saw it, from a specific angle or point of view. So, figurative art refers to any form of modern art that maintains strong references to the real world and particularly to the human figure. Now, what do we understand by conceptual space? Now, conceptual space refers to abstract instead of factual representation of an object, person or idea. So, here we have two examples of two paintings from two different parts of the world, Eastern as well as Western. The author also explains how a conceptual plane can be unlocked through landscape art. Now, here she introduces us to the concept of Senshui. Senshui, the word that is used to indicate a landscape, which means mountain, water. However, more than being two elements of an image, the mountain and water represent two complementary poles. Now, poles here means opposites, but they complement each other. Now, complementary poles reflecting the Taoist view of the universe. The mountain is yang, reaching vertically towards the heaven. It is stable, warm and dry in the sun, while the water is yin, horizontal land resting on the earth. It is fluid, moist and cool. The interaction of yin and the receptive, feminine aspect of the universal energy, and its counterpart yang, that is active and masculine, fundamental notion of Taoism. However, what is often overlooked is an essential third element. See, here we have talked about two elements, yang and yin, but there is a third element also. The middle void is where their interaction takes place. This can also be compared with the yogic practice of pranayama, where you breathe in, hold and breathe out. The suspension of the breath is the void where meditation occurs. I hope you understand the middle void. When you do pranayama, you breathe in, you hold your breath, this is the middle void, and then you breathe out. Middle void is therefore essential. Nothing can happen without it. Similarly, we can understand the importance of the white unpainted space in Chinese landscapes. Now, you can look at different Chinese paintings, you can Google them and try to locate that unpainted white space, and that is the middle void. The middle void is also where humans find a fundamental rule, in that space between heaven and earth. So, that is the interpretation. They become the conduit of communication between both the poles of the universe. The presence of humans is essential, even if it is only suggested, far from being lost or oppressed by the lofty peaks. Humans are, in Francois Chang's wonderful expression, the eye of the landscape. So, that is the eye of the landscape, the middle void, where you are interacting with the work of art. Explain now. Let us discuss a few questions. Explain the concept of Feng Shui. I hope it is clear to you. Two elements of an image. Example, mountain and river are yang and yin respectively. They are energies and concepts. Yang reaching vertically towards heaven, stable, warm and dry in the sun, is represented by the mountain. The water is yin, resting on the earth, horizontal, fluid, moist and cool. The interaction of yin, the receptive, feminine aspect of universal energy, and yang as active and masculine energy are central to Taoism. Yin and yang represent opposites. Each plays an important role in universal harmony. To understand something, you have to understand its opposite experience. Take the example of sensory experience. You cannot experience the cold without having experienced something hot. Then only you can appreciate that this is cold and this is hot. The concepts are mapped to each other. Day and night, contrasting seasons are some examples. Now, you can look for more examples. They are present in every aspect of life. They seem like opposites, but flow from one to another. Day and night, they are opposite, but they flow from day to night and night to day, and so create balance and harmony. So, in this section, we are going to talk about Getting inside outsider art. There is a box item in your textbook on page 36 and 37. Please refer to that. I am going to discuss outsider art. The author examines French art history and the work of an Indian creator to address the question of who can be an artist. When you read this section of the text, it almost seems like the address is that the author is asking this question on behalf of the Flemish blacksmith from the earlier story. By painting the fly, he had proven that anyone could create art. Remember that blacksmith was not trained in art, but he was able to paint. So, we can also paint, you can also paint. Yet, there was a time even in modern history when a genre known as outsider art was of minority interest. This genre refers to art created by women and men who have received no formal training, yet they have the talent, artistic insight, and they can paint. However, with time, outsider art gradually became the fastest growing area of interest in international contemporary art. It is important to note that in the 1940s, French painter Jean Dubuffet mooted the concept of art brut, which means raw art. This school of thought acknowledged the materials, processes and creations of artists from outside a fine art school. Even though initially majority opinion was that an untrained person had no right to be called an artist, works of artists from the art brut school were found to provide a stimulating contrast to mainstream offerings. So, here we are talking about mainstream artists and the artists who have the talent, who have not received any formal training, but they are able to use materials of different kinds and create art. The author also mentions that around the time Dubuffet was propounding his concept in India, an untutored genius was creating paradise. Can you guess the name of the person? The gentleman in question had begun clearing a little patch of jungle to make a garden sculpted with stone and recycled material. Today, the area is known to the world as the Rock Garden at Chandigarh. Its creator, director, Nek Chand, is hailed as India's biggest contributor to outsider art. So, you understand the difference between the formal art and art brut. In fact, the 50th issue, spring 2005 of Raw Vision, a UK based magazine, pioneer in outsider art publications, had featured Nek Chand and his rock garden sculpture Women by the Waterfall on its anniversary issue's cover. That's a huge respect. This was quite an honor and also served as a validation of art brut or raw art, because Mr. Chand's creations were regarded as influential, cultural and artistic pieces. Anything and everything from a tin to a sink to a broken down car could be material for a work of art. This philosophy was taken to dizzying heights in the rock garden. Recognizing Mr. Nek Chand's art as an outstanding testimony of the difference a single man can make when he lives his dream. So, you also must be having some dream. Work towards it. If you work hard, you have the vision, you will be able to achieve it. Okay, let us continue. The Swiss Commission on UNESCO also honored him by way of a European exposition of his works. The 5-month interactive show, Realm of Nek Chand, was held at prominent museums across Europe in countries like Switzerland, Belgium, France and Italy. Mr. Nek Chand is reported to to have once told a journalist, the biggest reward is walking through the garden and seeing people enjoy my creation. Now, this was an article which we had taken from Hindustan Times, 28 August 2005, written by Brinda Suri. Rock garden sculpture made of broken bangles by Nekchand. Now, let us discuss a few questions. What do you understand by the terms outsider art and art brut or raw art? Who was the untutored genius who created a paradise, and what is the nature of his contribution to art? You all know it, Nekchand Saini. His full name is Nekchand Saini. He was born on 15 December 1924 and he was there till 12th June 2015. He was a self-taught Indian artist, known for building the rock garden of Chandigarh, an 18-acre sculpture garden in the city of Chandigarh. Nekchand and his garden became national treasures. In 1980, he was awarded the Grand Medal of Hornbill from the city of Paris. In 1983, the garden was pictured on an Indian postage stamp, and a year later, Chand was presented with India's Padma Shri Award. 1984, one of the India's highest civilian awards for distinguished service in the arts. I think you are now ready to take up a few activities. Let us do the activities. The first is a comprehension question. Let us understand. I will read out the statement and you try to find out the meaning and then we will discuss. Let us understand. The first one, the emperor may rule over the territory he has conquered, but only the artist knows the way within. So, how would you explain the sentence? The sentence explains the fact that even though an emperor might rule an entire kingdom and have power over his conquered territory, only an artist would be able to go beyond material appearances. He knows both the path and mysterious methods of the universe. The true meaning of his work can be seen only by means known to him. Irrespective of how powerful an emperor is, he too must follow the artist's lead. He must learn to appreciate the art. Okay, the second question. The landscape is an inner one, a spiritual and conceptual space. This phrase explains a Chinese art form wherein a Chinese painter wants you to enter his mind rather than borrow his eyes. The painter invites physical as well as mental interaction. A landscape created by the artist can be approached from any perspective. The viewer can travel up and down and back again with freedom. The landscape is not created to convey realism, but instead to encourage spiritual and personal exploration via the painting. How beautiful it is. Now, next time you look at such paintings, try to explore them from your point of view. Put your heart and soul into the interpretation. Now, let us do a few activities about language. The following common words are used in more than one sense, and all these words have been taken from your text. The words are panel, studio, brush, essence, material. You will find that all these words have been used on page 35 of your textbook. You can go through the paragraph once again to find out their usage. Now, but these words can be used in different contexts. So, let us look at the examples. The first one, the mass from Bawa village in Mali look like long panels of decorated wood. Judge Hobart Grooms told the jury panel he had heard the reports, The panel is laying the groundwork for an international treaty. The glass panels of the window were broken. Through the many round tables, the workshops and panel discussions, a consensus was reached. The sink in the hinged panel above the bunk drains into the head. Please appreciate the usage of the word panel in different contexts. The moment the context changes, the meaning also changes. Now, let us look at other examples. Their repetitive structure must have taught the people around the great composer the essence of music. Part of the answer is in the proposition, but the essence is in the meaning. The implications of these schools of thought are of practical essence for the teacher. They had added vanilla essence to the pudding. Now, these examples were given in your textbook, but there are other words also. Let us take the example of the word material. All educational material from the ancient part is being restored. Textual material is developed keeping in view the interest of the students. She had nothing material to take with her. I want to buy the best material for my shirt. Now, the word is studio. Have you heard about studio apartment? I am recording in the studio. This is a studio shot and not a real one. Find 5 sentences each for the rest of the words to show the different senses in which each of them is used. Now, go back to your text, page 35. You will find all the examples. I have found a few for you. So, Quentin sneaked into the painter's studio and painted a fly on his latest panel with such delicate realism that the master tried to swat it away. Before he realized what had happened, Quentin was immediately admitted as an apprentice into his studio. So, in this particular paragraph, 3 words have been used. Not a trace of Wu Daozi's brush was left, page 35. A perfect illusionistic likeness in Europe, the essence of inner life and spirit of Asia. Again, page 35. A classical Chinese landscape is not meant to reproduce an actual view, as would a Western figurative painting, whereas the European painter wants you to borrow his eyes and look at a particular landscape exactly as he saw it from a specific angle. The Chinese painter does not choose a single viewpoint. So, these are some of the examples from your text for you to understand how we can get the meaning of the word from the context. Let us do the project work now. The question is, find out about as many Indian schools of painting as you can. Write a short note on the distinctive features of each school. Various Indian schools of painting are listed below for your reference, but they are available online also. So, now you have to finish this task by finding about them and writing about them. Second task is find out about Nekchand's rock garden and his creations. Try and make a work of art using recycled or upcycled materials. Write a note with illustrations on the process of making your version of brute art. Now, you are going to make brute art. You are all artists. Now, the third question is, have you heard of any individuals or NGOs who create toys, bags, clothes or other consumer items from recycled materials? Write a short description of any such initiative in your state, region or locality. So, these are the 3 things you have to do. Please submit your project work to your teacher, share it with your friends, and you can also share it with us. With this, we have come to the end of this session. I am sure you enjoyed doing this lesson with me. Keep reading, keep learning. Thank you.